Hello dear viewers, and we're back again right here at Good Morning Kuwait, and today we're going to start our first guest for the program. Dr. Abdulazim Marafi, a senior research scientist, worked at Kuwait Institute for Scientific Research at Qasr for 43 years. He owned a PhD degree on chemical from University of Oklahoma in 1996. Since he joined Qasr in 1983, he researched work on petroleum and petrochemicals. He is an author on more than 40 papers in Refined Journal, and Dr. Marafi has managerial experience, awards for the KFAS Prize on Scientific Publication on the area chemical engineering scientists in the field of petroleum refining, energy sciences, and oil refining technology. Now, types of oil distillation, work that affects oil prices, renewable energy, and so on. So let's welcome today our guest, and good morning. Welcome to you, Doctor.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm very pleased to meet with you, and I'm honored to have this opportunity. Maybe after a couple of years, I was here in this place, maybe. I'm very pleased, and I would like to welcome all the audience everywhere. I promise not to talk too much technicalities, try to make it easy to what they call it, to people who are available all around.
Well, your field is in research, so you have to talk in technicality and details. This is the nature of your job. And it's such a long CV that you have actually for 43 years.
I promise not, but I try my best. I want to make it more relative to everybody.
Why not?
Yes.
So the first question is that the envelopment of petroleum refining industry.
Let me just brief the audience on the word petroleum itself. It's related to hydrocarbon. Hydrocarbon can cover liquid, solid. It can cover gas, crude. But when we say crude, it's not a petroleum. Crude is a crude. It's a crude oil. And when I say refining of crude oil, I'm talking about especially the crude oil, which is there. You have to explore it. You have to get it from the ground. Historically, the crude oil in the old, maybe 5,000, 7,000, they used to use it in the caves. The human nature used to use it in many applications. However, by the time goes in, it became more important. And the first, actually, the first well was explored or discovered. It was in Pennsylvania, mid of the 19th century, especially in 1959, I think. Then the first refinery also was at that time, and there was one of the refinery in Romania. And then the refinery industry grown up, actually. And I think during the talk I will elaborate more and try to explain how the refinery goes from a simple configuration into a huge complex configuration.
Exactly. Well, we're still at the beginning of the interview, and we still have a lot to ask you, actually. Now, the second question is that trend in energy, oil, petroleum products, and now we're actually heading to more sustainable energy, which is, let's say, solar power and so on. So could you first tell us about the new trends of oil and petroleum products?
Frankly speaking, the petroleum refining, or let's say crude oil refining, it's a dynamic. It's been evolved from a simple configuration, as I said, into a complex configuration. And there were many factors behind of that. I will talk about it maybe later on. However, the simplicity is because of the beginning, and we have to keep in mind the need of the energy or the fuel. It's coming drastically, logarithmically with the increase of the population as well. Your question is very legitimate. However, we have to answer it at the end to see, in order to see how much refining of oil it's important relative to other. But I try to elaborate in the refining of crude oil, and I leave the alternative little bit because my specialty is on the more in the refining
oil
side.
And crude oil. Exactly.
Maybe at this stage I can to make it much simpler. There is a lot of factors employed, or factors really was behind the simplicity of refining into complex. You have the demand, marketing. You have the need of the different type of fuels. We have to keep, there is some called Kyoto protocols which try to protect the environment because of the CO2 emission from those hydrocarbon. Also, we have car industry parallel is going with the refinery
Well,
industry.
that's the biggest industry and market actually, which is the car industry, and it has to do with oil and gas at the same time.
And the other thing is geopolitics, which I will not go into more details than that because beyond my speciality. Alternative is now actually is going along parallel with the energy coming from the fossil fuel. By the way, when we say crude, it's a fossil fuel.
Of course.
And others maybe non-fossil. We will talk about that
at the end. Yes, exactly. Now factors influencing the reining industry.
I had already mentioned that, but let me brief it again. The most important thing is the marketing, the supply and demand. And I think what we are having now actually is one of the things that we are noticing. The other thing is car industry. There is a lot of competition between car industry and refining industry. Everyone tried to pull it in the other side. At the same time, there is at the end of the corridor, at the window, environmentalists.
Yes.
Environmentalists, they started putting more burden on the industry, the mobile car industry as well as the refinery. And just for example, when we come to diesel fuel, which used for the trucks, and a couple of years back, the sulfur content, it was maybe 5,000 ppm. Now it's less than 10 ppm. The driving force is the environmental regulation is getting more stringent. At the same time, car industry trying to push to modify and to make their cars more suitable for the environment.
Yes,
at the end, is an additional cost will be added to the car industry as well as to the refinery industry.
Exactly. There are people that actually are taking care of the environment, and they are seeing the change in how climate right now is changing because of these, and they're putting stricter regulations, as you said.
Exactly.
And this is something that we should look for the future. Even though if we're heading to sustainable energy, we still need crude oil in the end of the day to have any alternative energy. Exactly. Now, with that said, now we're going to go into your let's say, in your field more. So, crude oil sources and the average quality and crude oil cost in general.
Well, I think this is a very beautiful question, and the answer is I need maybe not 5-10 minutes, but I try to make it in a summary. Every country in the world, they have their own sources, you know. Crude oil, it can go from light to heavy. The characteristic of the crude, especially the API, which is belongs to the density, when it is heavy, you're going to have a low API. When it is very light, it goes to like 50 or 60. At the same time, the sulfur content. The sulfur content is very important. The sulfur content is a burden on refining because you have to use additional processes to make it to, because the crude itself, when you distill it physically, you end up with products, but they are not a finished product. You have to you have to add to it, you have to improve it, you have to remove sulfur. There is a lot of contaminant over in the oil itself when you go to the different fraction. So I go back. If we just let's concentrate in our country, beautiful country, Kuwait. I love Kuwait. Is yani, God gave us this country, the position, the place, the more strategic. We have so wealth of crude, and we call it the jewelry of Kuwait. Yes. And Kuwait used to be the pearl of Gulf, and it's still going to be continue. So our source of crude is varied. The first time they explored, it was in 1937 or 38, and then they stopped it because of the war, Second War. Then the first, the well will open, I think, in 1948. Then they shipped, and the refinery started at the beginning. It took a couple years. Our crude is varied. We have light, we have medium, we have heavy. Medium is the one which you are selling. They call it Kuwait export crude.
Yes.
And it is standard. It has an API of 30 and sulfur content of 2.5. When you say Kuwait export crude, this is the characteristic. The value, it changes, depend on the factors I told you about.
Yes, exactly.
So it might vary between, and depend. The marketability depends on the demand and supply and other things. So luckily we have good crude, and also we are having exploring light crudes, and myself used to work on these areas with my colleagues when I used to work. And if you see it, it's like za'faran. It's like chai za'faran. This one, you don't need to put effort to refine it. And at the same time, we have heavy one, which is API 13, 14, sulfur around 5. It's need extra processing and additional costs will be associated.
Exactly.
So we are lucky and
to have diversities of different crudes, from light to medium and heavy ones.
Exactly. And now, sometimes they go for blending in order to end up, it's depends on the availability, because sometimes it's not available. So they have to make a blending to end up with Kuwait export crude.
All right. Now, when we're talking about alternative fuel transportation, what do you mean by that?
You see, along the line, and in the last couple of decades, many countries, they are trying to find other ways of a source of energy. Again, I go back. Kuwait is, thanks God, we have this type. Additionally, we have other source of alternative, and for example, solar, wind. So it depends on the nature of the country and what is available. So parallel, researchers and universities all around the world, they start trying to find alternative. For example, some people try to work in biofuel, some people try to work in hydrogen, fuel cell, solar energy, wind, thermal. There are many, but at the end of the day, you have to buy the cheapest one, which give you maximum wattage per dollar. At the same time, those alternative, they are highly costed, and they have limited infrastructure. And the mileage the mileage per using it's the little less comparing to the fossil fuel. Most of those we call them non-fossil, and the one which I'm concentrating is called fossil fuel.
Yeah. Now, Dr. Abdulazim, now we're almost at the end of our our kind of interview, but before that, we want to summarize something that says everything in one sentence, and at the same time, we want to talk about alternative energy at the same time.
Okay, let me, in order to make it summarize, and let's focus on the Kuwait as our country. In my opinion, based on my experience and also experience that we had together, our colleagues used to work for many more than 4 decades, alternative, it will continue. However, still there is a lot of effort has to be made to reduce the cost associated. And at the same time, the conventional, let's say, conventional is the fossil fuel refining, the regular one available. As I said, it started from simple to more sophisticated, and still there is a lot of advancement still remaining. So we are, we can go to zero emission. Maybe something I have to get it back. The major problem with the fossil fuel is CO2 emission,
of course,
which making this cloud or the ozone effect, and people try to predict the environment, and they realize it after 100 years of 120 years of refining, that they have to look at it. However, let me just say something. When I was young, when I graduated, I attended a conference, and there was a minister, I think one of the Gulf countries. He said fossil fuel going to prevail for the coming 50 years. It was in 1985. So we are now almost 40 years
there,
and still we're depending. In my opinion, to make it very short, to make the story short, those will be parallel, alternative as well as the conventional. And I don't think they will intersect, because the demand is continuous. We have to keep in consideration population was worldwide is increasing, and the environment regulation is getting more restricted. Despite the fact a lot of advances made in the alternative, but still we have a lot of problems. And for example, using batteries with cars, they found the cars is not working in the Gulf countries because of the hot weather. They end up with huge spent batteries, lithium. What are they going to do with? Some people work in biodiesel, they get it from peanuts or palm. If you're going to use this type of food, so people are going to eat, what going to eat?
Exactly.
You're going to have environmentally friendly.
Yeah, I mean, it needs a stronger infrastructure. It needs to be studied well, actually, to just, get to that point of using electrical energy.
But
as
you will not going to have, you need a breakthrough. Breakthrough is going to intersect. This is my opinion. I respect everybody, but I believe what's happening in the current situation is really
That's actually a very interesting
yeah,
point
I think
to say.
it's focusing what I'm saying.
Yeah.
يعني I remember in 3 years back when there are some political problems, they go back to the charcoal.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it is a very interesting topic, and it actually needs another sitting for this.
Of course.
We want to thank you so much, Dr. Abdulazim Marafi, for being with us and attending right here.
Thank you very much.
And we hope to see you soon again.
Right. My pleasure. I'm always pleased to be here. I love to be here. I love to share my information. And forgive me, audience, if I was a little fast, or maybe I tried to talk a little bit in science. But I promise.
Well, as they say, science is an amazing, actually, subject always to have, and we're living in science every day.
Of course.
And thank you so much again, Doctor.
Thank you
and we
very
hope
much.
to see you
I'm
soon
really
again.
pleased with having you too.
Thank you.
I think I always say you are the you are the young generation. You are the spring.
Thank you so much.
And we work, despite the fact we work a long time. However, I think you are the sustainable energy for this country.
Thank you so much. It is such a wonderful way of saying it and ending it. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, dear viewers, this was Dr. Abdulazim Marafi, is a senior research and scientist who worked at the Kuwait Institute for Scientific and Petroleum Researches. All right, dear viewers, thank you so much. And we're going to go right now on a break, and we'll be right back for more.